Liv, we're back on the mic.
And we should be really relaxed and zen.
I'm
no,
excited.
we haven't done our favourite bit.
Oh, yes.
Hang on.
It's Real Talk. It's Leonie.
And Liv.
Welcome to our safe space.
We're back from holiday, so we're going to be zen and just let's keep the vibes.
But I'm like exciting high energy vibe right now because I haven't even seen you till right now. Like
we were just laughing. This is actually the vision for the podcast when we were like, let's just put a microphone in front of us.
We always
at a cafe,
yes,
talking about our life. This is exactly what we're doing.
This is exactly what we're doing. We haven't caught up, but the difference is we have mics, we have camera, we have lights, we have everything around us. But like it's basically our dream has been executed here. So, my God, where do we start? So holidays, we've both been away.
Yours was way more exotic than mine. So how about we start with yours?
Well, what I think is rather than bore people with like, oh yes, we've been on holidays, how fabulous, we'll tell them where we were, but I want to hear the shittest story that happened from your holidays. Okay, so for those listening, I was in Greece and I spent 4 weeks there with my family, which was really lovely. I'm half Greek, and my mum and my mum's Greek, and so my parents spent a lot of time over there. So we try sort of every second year to get over there. Yep. We stay in this beautiful little beachside town in the south of Greece, where we have a lot of friends and family. It's like stepping back in time, like into like the stone houses, and it's very like organic, but not trying to be cool, but just like literally everyone has farms and lives off the land.
Not a whole heap of Wi-Fi access around the place.
It's just that. It's offline, complete offline, which is amazing. So yes, that was great, just chilled and all that. But you want to hear my shit story?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about.
Okay, so my major shit story was, so Jules and I had planned to go away for a couple of days without the children. I think I'd mentioned this to you. Yeah. We were very excited. We were leaving the children with my parents. And off we go to this retreat, like resorty kind of place, which was about 3 hours drive along the Peloponnese, and the Peloponnese is like coastline, cliff hanging, it's stunning.
The Mediterranean
vibes, that sun beating down on that crystal water. Anyway, so we were so excited, and we'd prepped the kids, and we'd been in Greece for about a week, and we'd gotten over the jet lag, and I was like, kids, you will sleep for my parents, because also this was the first time that we'd ever left our kids for a sleepover with my parents ever, because my parents love their sleep. They're not, and they're not big on don't wake me up at night kind of thing. So as the children were younger, it was often Jules's parents who live in the country who would do the sleepovers, and my parents would do the consistent, once a week sort of looking after our children during the day. So we're leaving our kids with my parents, we'd worded them up. Everything's going to plan. We'd packed our little bags, hop in our rental car. And I even said to Jules as we hopped in the car, I'm like, hey, if this car breaks down, like, do we know who to call? And he's like, yeah, the paperwork's there. It's like, why would you think about that? I'm like, I don't know. I just had this weird dream last night that something's going to happen. I did.
You had a premonition?
A premonition. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So we're backing out the driveway at this one. So we go up the mountain, cliff facing. I've got my hand out of the car with my phone in it, just doing my videos and being like, how fabulous is my life. And then as we're chugging up this mountain, single lane mountain, so like one car goes that way, the other car goes that like single lane, nowhere to pull over. There's a cliff and there's ocean. That roaring up, got Dua Lipa on the stereo, and I'm like, yeah, and then it's like clunk. And I was like, Jules, what was that? And he's like, nah, she'll be right. Hits the accelerator. It's like clunk. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Jules, my heart is beating. I'm like, where do we stop?
So what was it? The engine?
It was the freaking engine. And so finally, and I'm like, and Jules is like, don't stress, it will be fine. And you can see he's panicking. We were 30 minutes into our 3-hour journey. Anyway, we found this little patch of nothing that we managed to move the car into, and we called the rental car company. They're like, no, Greek style, you will be fine. We'll get someone out there. They'll be there soon, like 5 minutes. And I'm like, no, don't say 5 minutes, because 5 minutes in my country means 5 minutes. 5 minutes in your country could mean 5 days. So I need to know, when is this guy coming? And it's like, all right. Let me check, right? Then goes and checks. And it's like 2 hours. And I was like, 2 hours, like real time, like 2 hours.
I just need context. Are you talking English or are you using your
I was
Greek?
I was in my Greek.
Oh.
Jules is there like, what are they saying? What
You're
are they
yelling
saying?
Greek? Like Greek restaurant yelling Greek? You're aggressive
Liv has
Greek.
seen Leonie in Greece, but when things don't go my way and I do get a little bit heated, my Mediterranean spirit comes out.
I love this.
So anyway, long story short, he's like 2 hours. So I'm there on the side of a cliff with Jules, like fanning myself with a piece of paper. Thankfully, we had internet. So and so what do? I text you straight away and I'm like, our freaking car's broken down. We're on the side of a road and I think I'm going to die. And then I was like, oh my God, I've got the internet. So on the plane on the way to Greece, I started watching Desperate Housewives, that TV show from like the 90s that I've always kind of been like, I wonder what that's about. So I started watching it. I was like, it's okay. Like, you know, so I was like, I've got to entertain myself right now because if I'm waiting, I'll be watching the seconds going by being like, that has been 2 hours.
Need to change the soundtrack.
I'm there. I put my earphones in, put my Desperate Housewives on, and then like it would cut out every now and then. So I'm like walking up this mountain trying to find internet.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, sweltering, 40-degree heat. Anyway,
did you have water?
We had water.
Were you worried that you were going to die?
I did think I was going to die.
Were you worried that you'd never see your kids again?
And then I'm like, I'm not texting my parents yet because they'll be like, what thee? I was like, I'll text them when it's resolved.
Yeah. Well, you're safe.
But I'm safe. So anyway, 2 hours tick by and I'm like, it's been 2 hours and 1 minute, Jules. I've got to call them. He's like, mate, I'm sure they're like 5 minutes away. I'm like, nah.
No joke would have been 2 hours and 1 minute. Like I could almost hear the tick, like the clock tick over and you're like, that's it.
I call them. I'm like, where are you? Oh, 5 minutes. No. How far? And then, anyway, an hour later they come.
Okay.
And there's this massive tow truck, no aircon. They put the car on it and he goes, yeah. I go, can you take us to the nearest town? And then I was like, we'll figure out another car from there. Like, what do you even do? And also, you are eating into my kid-free time. Like, this is a waste of my time now. Like, couldn't this happen when I had the kids? Even though if I had the kids involved, it would have been more of a nightmare. But still, like, this is my kid-free time. So anyway, we get in the tow truck. He's like, I've just got a few jobs to do before I take you to the main town. And we're like, a few jobs. Yeah, should be right. Like, hopefully in the next hour we'll get there. 3 hours later, after sitting in this tow truck, going to a number of jobs with no air conditioning and my internet having stopped, so I couldn't even watch my bloody show.
I can just imagine you sitting in this
like
truck.
Sweating.
Literally.
It's like chug.
Legs just like stuck on like the vinyl seats. Like,
just reminiscing of my life 4 hours ago when I was hooting up that mountain. I looked like everything was perfect. Anyway, long story short, we get to this main town and we're thinking, okay, because the Greeks were like, yeah, we'll get you a car and it will meet you in the main town. And I'm like, I don't trust them. I don't trust them, Jules. And I don't want to stay overnight in this dingy little town that I want to get to my nice resort. So Jules goes, actually, light bulb moment, why don't we get them to bring our car to the resort and we'll just get to the main town and we'll just pay an arm and a leg for a taxi to get us to the resort. Because at this point, we don't care. We just need to get there. Yeah. That's what we did.
Sure.
Well, we thought about it and then we were like, it wasn't too bad in the end cost-wise. And it was, and then it's like you go through this travel insurance process. Is it even worth it for your stress levels?
Exactly.
If you can still get the, it's touch and go depending on how much you're spending. But thankfully, it was only 2 hours in a cab, which, Anyway, so we get 2 hours in a cab. We get there, we were meant to get there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We get there at 6:30 at night. And at that point, I was like, Mama needs some bubbles ASAP. But I was so happy to be there. And then after,
relief. I can imagine just walking in, dropping bags. We're here.
I'm like, hair is matted to my face. I'm like sweating. And I'm like, I had imagined rocking up, feeling fabulous, just being like, we've arrived.
That's just life, isn't it? Life just doesn't go the way that you plan.
It never does.
And you just have to keep your head screwed on because it's so easy to just absolutely lose it. But like, what can you do?
What can you do?
Did you have that moment of what can I do?
Yes, we did.
I just have to breathe and we're still on holiday.
Exactly. And at that point, we were like, we don't have the kids because we're like, imagine you have the screaming kids with you and things like that. But even still, I was like, anyway, we get there and we had a beautiful dinner. And then it's almost like you just forget that even happened. So that just went past us. And the next day I'm like, I reckon they're not going to bring the car. I reckon something's going to happen because the Greeks are so like, don't worry about it. Like, we'll get. And anyway, they did. They brought the car at lunchtime and I was like, perfect.
I'm pretty sure they got the vibe very early
They didn't want to mess with me.
That it wouldn't have been worth really stuffing you around because they would not hear the end of it. So sometimes it just pays to cut through.
Oh, mate. I don't have tolerance for people who are like, if you are umming and ahhing. I don't do that. It's like black or white, mate.
That is absolutely one of my pet peeves when 5 minutes is not 5 minutes. So
can't deal.
I'm glad that you absolutely own that. You got the answer that you needed.
So that's my qualm. What about you? So where did you go and what was your shittest time?
It wasn't the shittest time, but it was the funniest time.
Okay.
So Mark and I had a kid-free holiday. We went skiing in Queenstown. I'm a mad snow bum. It's the language I used to use back in the day. Probably shouldn't say that anymore, but yeah, I really like après and skiing. And it was lovely to go away without the children.
Yeah.
One of the activities that we booked through the hotel where we were staying, we didn't actually have to pay for it, but still, was a beautiful hot soak, they call it, in a private bath in a beautiful enclosed little hut that's got beautiful views over the Remarkables. So I got my bathers on, I put my robe on, and I shuffled down with Mark, and we had a bottle of champagne, and it was looking good until the door opened into my little soak room, and I was presented with a construction site that was, no joke, 1 kilometre by half a kilometre, had 12 diggers on it and about 50 men, all within like what felt like 5 metres of my soak tub. So there I am in my robe, and then I was like, we're going to turn around. And I was like, nah, stuff it.
Yeah, we're here now.
We're here now. Life's for living. Yeah. I'm going to have to get into the soak tub, but first these 50 men are going to have to look at us.
Like, turn around.
So I decided I would do a show. And they, to their credit, they were trying to be quite discreet. Okay. Like, there are 3 soaking tubs. They're seeing people all day, like, come in. Yeah. But the shock of it for me walking into that, I was like, I just want private time with my husband. Instead, I'm sharing it with my husband and all these other men.
No smooching in the hot tub for you.
There was not a lot of smooching. So I spent the next 10 minutes trying to really perfect my Instagram photo when the construction site is cut out. And then I gave the in real life version of that where you can see what I experienced on that day. So, yes, it wasn't nearly as romantic, but I got a real lol from it.
Mate, it's a good story.
It was more just enjoyable watching the workers trying to be discreet, because they'd kind of look up and then they'd see that you're looking and then they'd look down. And
was there sound? Was there like jackhammers?
There was jackhammers.
You're like so serene.
And they, typical kind of soak massage day spa vibes. They've got the beautiful soundtrack that they're trying to drown out the diggers with. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
gosh. It was a real lull. Oh. We ended up going back for more. I booked it the next day because I must be an exhibitionist or something. I don't know, but I kind of really enjoyed it.
Bit of a different kind of experience.
Who am I? It's not me, but it
Did you give them 5 stars on that?
They were giving me 5 stars, Lee.
Oh my gosh. No.
What are we actually going to talk about
anyway,
today?
that's good to catch up. That's hilarious. Well, whilst I was away, I put out a bit of a call out. Oh, actually, whilst I was away, we have to just talk about this because we haven't even spoken about it. The Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Was this a big thing for you? Like, did you feel like you were tuning in a lot?
I didn't sleep for 2 weeks.
Oh, you were really into it.
It was in Paris.
Yeah, okay.
And the time zone between Australia and Paris, really not conducive.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love Australia. I love sport. I love all of the stories that surround all of the athletes and the hardship that they go through and the heartbreak and the thrills and the highs. I just live for all of it. Yeah. I mean, there's so many good stories that have come out of it, from, the Fox sisters to, something that we were chatting about, redefining motherhood for so many women. Jess Trangrove literally gives me chills when I say her name.
Yeah.
Or I think she goes by Jess Stenton now, that has recently had her second baby and did an absolute killer job, was leading the marathon at one point, and I just thought, wow, we can do anything, us mums.
Very special.
It was just incredible. It's the first Olympics that they had a creche in the athletes' village. Once upon a time, motherhood spelt retirement, right? And in fact, I was just watching a clip of an athlete who's just retired because she's pregnant. And I thought, okay, it is her time, and she made that very clear. But, once upon a time, you were 22, falling pregnant, and that was it. You had to quit your job and quit your sport and quit everything that you're interested in. It just, I don't know, really ignited something in me.
Yeah. So, do you think it's being a parent and appreciating it more? Do you think it's times have changed? Do you think it's a bit of both?
I think it's all of that.
Yeah.
Times are changing. Right? Representation across sport in society and workplaces, is finally getting to the level that it needs to be.
Yeah.
And there were I think we're getting better at telling the stories a little bit too, and celebrating the success of women and men and parents and the stories that come behind all the people that get out there and give it a crack. That's the Olympics. The Paralympics too is another story too.
Amazing.
I could talk about it all day. It's genuinely
solo
so
ep with
inspiring.
Liv on the Olympics coming up. Stay tuned.
I think people will tune out to that. But if anyone wants to have a conversation with me about any athletic story or would like to relive our athletic days of shot put and sprinting, I'll let you guess who was the sprinter and who was the shot putter. Happy to share those separately.
Love that. Well, we're actually talking about sharing stories. So whilst I was away, I got a DM from someone who was like, look, they were a Melbourne parent and they said, I'd actually love your take on, I'm looking for a daycare centre for my child.
Yeah.
How did you guys go about it? And I thought, you know what? We have done a few episodes on sort of our journey in choosing our schools and things like that. But I thought let's do this question justice and sort of, it doesn't have to be daycare specific, can be kinder, can be school. I feel like we need to revisit this because a lot of the time I am getting asked these questions. So what do you think fundamentally were your key factors when you were determining daycare, kinder, school?
Do you know what's coming to me now?
Yeah.
I think what I was looking for is completely different to how I would answer that question now in terms of the advice that I would give somebody.
Hit us with advice.
Okay, so the advice that I would give is looking at the turnover rate of the staff that work in the centre and the quality of the management of the centre.
Yes.
So as opposed to when I was looking for a centre when, 5 years ago now really, I cared about aesthetics a little bit more. I wanted it to be clean. I wanted there to be really great food. Yeah, I had some questions for the service manager, but I certainly didn't ask any questions around who the educators were, where they came from, how long they'd been there. I didn't ask the questions that we might have for primary school.
Yes.
I think they're just as critical in daycare and kinder environments. So
I'll put a link to the episode we did about Liv's massive list of questions that she asked when she went for her school interview, the school orientation programs and things like that as she was exploring her schools. Because I actually think that they were amazing and we got such good feedback on those questions because these are the things that, I certainly didn't ask. I was like, that school's in the right location. I guess it's got a decent reputation. That'll do. But you had a really extensive list. And I think it's critical to be thorough,
So, culture of the daycare, the values of the daycare or the kinder, critical.
How can you sense that as you walk through the door?
I think you just can, your own intuition.
Yep.
And asking questions and trying to engage with the educators. Yep. If you go on a tour, are they disengaged, they engage, how are they approaching the children? Because, of course, all we care about as parents is the safety and the happiness of our children. Yep. And young children who are not usually verbal at that point, right, cannot communicate their needs. So you need to be sure that these carers are being really attentive and are building bonds with the children. And I don't think I looked for that. Maybe I did know because I did look at multiple centres and I did choose one. And we've had a really rocky journey with that centre. I've stuck with them through thick and thin, and really had to, really communicate the needs of the kids and my concerns at particular points. But I've always come back to I was really comfortable with the management and how they were dealing with the things that I thought at a time had not gone to plan. So
how soon would you have started this investigation? Like when you're pregnant?
I think you have to. I remember when we were pregnant, 5.5, 6 years ago now, that childcares were so hard to come by.
Yes.
I had so much. I think it was the one thing I was most stressed about. I was like, I'll be able to look after this baby, but I'm going back to work when the baby's 6 or 9 months old and I need to get them into care. Yeah. And certainly talking to some of the young mums at work, that still seems to be a real challenge for them. So I do think that, when you're starting to think about conceiving or when you fall pregnant, that's a really great time. I think there are so many different platforms, Google reviews, mum groups on Facebook, just asking around, the local councils too for recommendation. I mean, there are some council-led daycare and kinders, obviously.
Yep.
Harry and Tommy both have gone to daycare and community kinder, so I've had both experiences, private and public.
Yeah.
You just got to do your research.
Kinder, how soon do you have to put the name down for a kinder?
Well, it's very strict. It's very strict. There's a day that it opens. You must get it in on that day.
Okay.
It can be quite competitive depending on where it is that you're living, because they only, I think in our kinder we have 44 spots. We had 103 applications for 3-year-old kinder.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how the council determines who gets in or not. I would assume that it's based on your address, but I'm not certain about that. Yeah. It's very strict for community kinder, whereas I think for daycare it's a scattergun approach for the ones that you want to get in. Yeah. But then it comes about getting the days. Like there are some daycares that I knew you had to do it in blocks. You could have Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Right. Or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You couldn't have a Monday and a Thursday.
Right. So, what about local schools? Is there a set time in which you have to get your applications in there as well? There
is, but I think it's a much broader time span. So, if your baby, they'll always be your baby. If your preschooler, your little schooler is going into prep, say in 2025. So next year. Yeah. God, it's coming around so
crazy.
Quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably already closed now in October. I think it's August, September.
Yeah.
But school tours, daycare tours, kinder tours, all the rest of it, it's the best possible thing that you can do.
Sure.
And what would my advice be? Trust your gut.
Yes. And I think for me, I really wasn't as extensive as you, but I did lean heavily on their reputation and feedback from the community and my network. Yeah. So if I felt that there was, for example, with the daycare centre that my kids went to was a bilingual Greek-English one, that really got me over the line. But I've got cousins, aunties, relatives who have all been through that daycare centre. So I was like, that's good enough for me. And it's funny, I walked in and I was like, oh, it's not the flashiest and it's not all those things, but I'm just going to go with my gut. My gut's telling me that they have the best Greek food going round. Like they have like pasticcio on a Friday and souvlaki and stuff. I'm like, my gut's saying your kid will be fed well, you'll be right.
And you're looking at all the kids and they're happy and they're not screaming and there's music. Yes. I did walk into our daycare one day and the music was so loud.
Oh, really?
And I had to say, guys, do you really think that that's appropriate?
Let's ease up on that.
Thankfully, I never saw that again.
Okay.
But that's the environment that is really, really critical.
Yeah.
That not all the kids are sitting on tablets, or I know a lot of daycares are starting to integrate e-learning for 3-year-olds into daycare centres. Like that might be something that many of us are just really struggling against, right? So, there's another question you might ask. Yep. Do you use tablets for e-learning for your 3-year-olds?
Yes,
It's really interesting. It's stuff you don't think about.
You don't think about.
People wouldn't think to ask that question.
No. Yeah. No, I love that. Well, hopefully to that person we've answered your question and we'll leave it there. We'll catch you next time, Liv.
See you then.